Have you ever heard of green fire? That's what they call the glow from a Colombian emerald. It's why they're the most sought-after green gem in the entire world. But that incredible glitter, it hides a really dark secret. For every single one of these stones you see in a piece of jewelry, there's a story. A story of conflict, of drug cartels, and a criminal underworld that's literally been funded by its beauty. Today, we're going deep inside the high-stakes war for Colombia's green gold.
So here's what we're going to break down. First, the emerald paradox itself. Then we'll dig into its history of blood and beauty. We'll expose the modern criminal machine it fuels. And then, and this is a big pivot, we'll look at the corporations trying to clean it all up. Finally, we'll see how these two completely opposite worlds manage to exist at the exact same time.
All right, let's start with that central conflict. How on earth did one of nature's most beautiful creations become a currency for chaos, for corruption, and for so much violence? This quote, right here, it just nails the problem. This isn't something new. For generations, the fact that the government wasn't really watching the mines turned the whole industry into a perfect machine for criminals. A way to fund their wars and to wash millions in dirty drug money. And here it is, the paradox, laid out plain as day. On one hand, you have pure geological perfection. Colombia produces 2/3 of all the emeralds on the planet. But on the other hand, you have this 60-year legacy of financing some of the country's most brutal and violent conflicts. The contrast, it's just staggering. So to really get how we got here, we have to go back, way back. Because the roots of all this violence, they run deep. We're not talking decades here, we're talking centuries. Even the origin story itself is a tragedy. The local Muzo legend says the very first emeralds were created from the tears of a woman named Fora. Her betrayal cost her and her lover their eternal life. So from the very, very beginning, these beautiful stones have been tied to pain. And that myth just gave way to a real, relentless cycle of violence. In the 1550s, the Spanish green fever for emeralds almost completely wiped out the indigenous Muzo people. Fast forward to the mid-1900s, the state has totally lost control, and local warlords just take over. And then, the 1980s, everything just explodes. They called them the Green Wars, and you had emerald tycoons, drug cartels, and paramilitary groups waging a full-on war for control of those mines. Now, here's the crucial part. That historic violence, it never really went away. It just got smarter. It evolved from simple brute force into this sophisticated global criminal enterprise. And it's designed for one thing: laundering massive amounts of drug money. The engine that makes this all run is something called trade-based money laundering, or TBML. Look, it sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. It's the art of using a real trade, like buying and selling emeralds, to move and clean illegal cash. It's an incredibly powerful way to make cartel profits look like they came from a legit business. And believe me, this conspiracy goes right to the very top. I mean, take a guy like Horacio Triana. They called him the Emerald Tsar. This wasn't some street-level dealer. He was one of the most powerful people in the entire industry. And in 2019, he was sent to the U.S. for trafficking cocaine for the Sinaloa cartel. His conviction proved with absolutely no doubt that the link between emeralds and organized crime wasn't just ancient history. It was happening right now. Now, with a criminal network that deep, you'd think that's where the story ends. But, and this is a wild twist, there's a parallel universe fighting back. At the very same time this criminal underworld is operating, a huge corporate effort is happening to create a completely clean, totally legitimate, and ethical emerald industry. This quote from the Muzo Mining Company, it's like their declaration of war on the old way of doing things. They are staking their entire brand on a promise of responsibility. They want their emeralds to be famous not just for that green fire, but for having a clean origin. It's a direct challenge to the industry's bloody past. And their strategy is really twofold. First, tech. They've built a traceability system that can actually track a single tiny gem from the second it's pulled out of the ground all the way to a jewelry store. Second, social investment. Their foundation supports the local communities with things like education and even helping them start other businesses like farming cacao. The whole idea is to give buyers total confidence in what they're spending their money on. And all of this is actually built on a real legal foundation. The Colombian Constitution is crystal clear. The nation's resources belong to the state. Companies can get the rights to mine, but they have to play by the rules, and this is the key part, they have to pay royalties back to the country. This table shows you exactly how that's all supposed to work. See? Emeralds are down there under non-metallic minerals with a 3% royalty rate. This is how the legit industry is designed to actually enrich the nation. It's a world away from the criminal trade that only fuels violence and sucks wealth out of the country. So, okay, we've got these two completely different stories, a dark, shadowy criminal network and a transparent, modern corporate industry. But the crazy reality is, one doesn't cancel out the other. They are both running at full speed right now in the same country and a lot of times in the exact same regions. To get your head around how that's possible, you have to look at the bigger picture. The illegal emerald trade doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's just one piece of this huge regional ecosystem of organized crime. I mean, look at this map. It shows that 75% of trafficking victims in the area actually come from within the region. That just shows you how tangled and deep these criminal networks really are. And it is so important to remember that Colombia is way more than just its emeralds. The country has a massive, legitimate economy that's completely separate from all this conflict. We're talking major sectors like manufacturing, food processing, and textiles that are driving growth and have nothing to do with the war over greenstones. So in the end, what you have is a nation of incredible contrasts. You have the myth of forest tears up against the hard facts of the Green Wars. You've got international cartels operating right next to socially responsible corporations, a deep-rooted legacy of chaos fighting against a modern system of laws and regulations. Both are true, and both are happening right now. And that leaves us with one last really tough question. When a gemstone's history is this dark, when it's financed cartels and fueled actual wars, can you ever truly wash away all the grime and be left with nothing but the glitter? What do you think?